My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell, or Mike Pillow, as I like to call him, he has a brand new prognostication. He wants you all to listen to this. Take a look.
I talk to Democrats and liberals too, and they see the bad things that are going on. And it's not when I talk about Democrat, I'm not talking about the Democrat Party. I'm talking about Democrats that a lot of them felt there were even people at this in New Hampshire there that actually made a mistake, and they're going. If I'd have known this now, what I know then, because they invited it, it was kind of pretty much open to public, and there was a lot of people there that had, regrets that they wish they would have known more before they voted. I said, you didn't know about this, but you thought you were voting for something. I said, you didn't get to vote. I said, you didn't get to vote. China did our vote, and we're going to show that at the symposium. And but I said, the hope there, Steve, the three of them I talked to, and this was outside the hotel, that they actually didn't come into the actual event, but they were there to tell me how they felt horrible, that they almost feel responsible for what's happened to our country. And I said, no, this was an attack on our country. They're seeing now firsthand what government can do and how bad socialism and communism can be. And this is so I think it's a big eye opener, which is going to help everything when we get through this, and the Supreme Court pulls down this election, like I've been telling everybody. When they do this, it's going to be a great uniting, and that gives me hope right there. These are Democrats on the ground that voted for Biden, and they realize now the mistake that they feel responsible, but they're seeing in power. And once we show them that it was China, the CCP, that used the Democrat Party. Once we had the symposium, Steve, I told these people, I said, you know what? I said, well, how are the pathways of Donald Trump coming back? And I said, well, the first one would be once we have the symposium by the night of the 12th or the morning of the 13th, if everyone has seen it, including the administration that's in there now that didn't win, maybe, Biden and Harris would say, hey, we're here to protect the country, and resign. And I'm serious. If you have any moral character about you, we're all in this together, and this was an attack, and you're going to see that at this symposium. It's all going to be, everything will be revealed there.
Okay, that's enough of that. I mean, hey, guys, I'm super serious, guys. I'm super serious. Man, Bear, Pig will totally invalidate the election. Biden and Kamala, they will resign, and the Supreme Court shows that the Man, Bear, Pig is super real. I'm super duper serial about this, guys. Come on. Embarrassing. This is embarrassing. He went on. I had to cut things out. But he's like going on for like 4 or 5 minutes, saying the same thing. Oh, the Democrat. I talked to a couple of Democrats, but not the Democrats. But I actually talked to some Democrats. His source was 3 supposedly alleged Democrats or Biden voters. Believe it or not, there's a small group of people that claim to ostensibly be on the left that are spreading conspiracy theories about the election fraud in 2020. They compare this to the 2020 primary, 2016 primary. Understandable, that's a different process. If you're talking about rigging an election, to me, depending on your definition, rigging an election means changing the votes and stuffing the ballots. That's to me. And as far as that's concerned, there's no evidence of that happening during the general election or during the primary. Now, funny enough, you could say, okay, in one election or both elections, if you want to make the point that there are certain people that put their thumb in the scale, now that is certainly a much, much better argument than the election was stolen and rigged and different. So one of the biggest things is the media. The media have to play a big role in both primary elections and the general election, of course. And so media biases against candidates do have an effect on voting. Now, I tend to think that actually does constitute putting your thumb on the scale. The establishment, of course, put their thumb on the scale for Trump in 2016, giving him billions and billions of dollars in free media. And then in 2020, put their thumb on the scale against Trump with all the negative reporting and even some that just ignored outright Trump events. And negative reporting includes, of course, things that are factual, like his response to COVID-19 was a disaster, his numerous scandals throughout his presidency, etc. My point is, in making that comparison, notice how none of that stuff is actually illegal to do. You can legally put your thumb on the scale in an election or a primary. That's not considered illegal. What is illegal, of course, is changing votes, throwing out ballots, stuffing, ballot boxes, things like that. That stuff, election fraud and voter fraud, is technically illegal. And again, we have no evidence of any of that happening. In fact, the Arizona case is not going well for Republicans. The cyber ninjas or whatever are not having a good time finding the fraud because it turns out there's no fraud to find. Sad. So I don't quite understand why these people that claim to be on the left, some of them say, oh no, this election was definitely rigged against Donald Trump and that Biden is not the real president. That's crazy. Crazy. And again, this is coming from somebody who's Biden, whose choice Biden, I'm sorry, who Biden was not the first choice of. Okay. I wanted Bernie Sanders. So anyway, okay. So let's go back to this, right? Now Lindell is a true believer. He's a grifter. And he's possibly on drugs. I mean, I can't say that for certain. But boy, when somebody goes on about that for about 3-4 minutes, you start to think maybe there's some crack involved. I'm just saying. Now, again, he's out here saying insane things. First, it was going to be the documentary that he came out with that fell flat. Then it's going to be the Supreme Court, and I guess it still is the Supreme Court. Now it's the symposium where he's got all the evidence and he's finally going to reveal it all, even though it was supposed to have been revealed during the other thing that he was doing, and then this and that, and then somehow Biden is going to resign and Harris, which will leave President Nancy Pelosi, which I'm sure they would be really, really thrilled about, right? No, this is a right-wing fever dream. And it's basically, like, it's based on nonsense, for one, and they don't even know how the process works. Okay, Biden and Harris resign, and you get President Pelosi. How does that help you at all? My God, man. It's nuts, but understandable. It pays very, very well. Understand that, like, Trump and people aligned to him have been raising so much money, and they've been really, really good at raising money. Trump himself has raised about $75 million from his followers, and to put towards a PAC that purports to fight against election fraud, which hasn't actually spent a dime fighting against election fraud and supporting these challenges. Oops. Not in Arizona, and not in any other state. Oops. Here's what's going on. They're using your anger to take you for a ride. The ride, of course, ends with them being incredibly rich and you still being angry and giving them money. This is what happens when you weaponize, well, maybe not weaponize, but you exploit real legitimate anger of our political process. Is our political process perfect? No. No, there's a lot of issues with our so-called American democracy. The fact that we live in an oligarchy, okay? And we really don't have any say. For example, Medicare for all. A majority of people, Americans, want universal health care. Would be fine with Medicare for all or a public option. We just want something, right? And more people would go for a public option right now than Medicare for all. I think Medicare for all, I know Medicare for all is actually the superior policy because it actually does better. It does everything better. It does everything cheaper. And yes, I'm talking about expanded Medicare for all, the Bernie Jayapal bill that gets brought up and then never voted on. Because, of course, there are people that don't want to bring it to the floor. There are people that are not interested in pissing off their donors in the healthcare industry. And so you've got things like that. You've got things like the $15 minimum wage, a living wage, which should be $25 an hour, that don't even get brought up in our Congress. And so, yes, that gets people feeling really powerless because guess what? In a lot of ways, we are. And yet there are people that will come, both left and right, that will weaponize this anger, use this anger in order to force non-solutions. because really the only solutions we see, I mean, are really difficult to see. And so it leaves us in a really angry spot, in a really vulnerable spot for people who like to grift. And that's what this guy is. He is grifting conservatives and saying, send me money, support me, watch my stuff, come buy tickets to my symposium so that, you know, I can basically tell you the things that you want to hear, that you got cheated, you were wronged, so I can keep making money. That's what it's all about, unfortunately. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.